You don't mind, do you? Rowan's allergic to cats? Mara delivered this announcement over breakfast like she was discussing the weather, not asking me to vacate my own bedroom for her old college friend. She stood at the granite counter in our kitchen, perfectly dressed for another day at the advertising agency, stirring her coffee with the mechanical precision of someone who'd already made up her mind. I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing quarterly reports for the investment firm. Allergic to cats? We don't have cats, Mara. Well, he's sensitive to pet dander in general. You know how these old houses hold on to things. She waved her manicured hand dismissively. It's just for a few nights while he gets settled. The couch is perfectly comfortable. Our 17-year-old son, Ross, glanced up from his cereal, eyebrows raised. Our 15-year-old daughter, Amelia, kept scrolling through her phone, but I caught the slight pause in her thumb movement. Even the kids sensed something off about this arrangement. When exactly did Rowan become my problem? I asked, closing the laptop. And why can't he stay at a hotel like normal people? Mara's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. After 18 years of marriage, I'd learned to read these micro-expressions. He's going through a rough patch, Grant. I thought you'd be more understanding. Understanding of what exactly? I haven't seen this guy since our wedding, and now he needs our master bedroom? He was at Ross's graduation party last month, she countered smoothly. You just don't pay attention to my friends? That stung because it contained enough truth to make me doubt myself. I did tend to zone out during Mara's social gatherings, preferring the quiet company of spreadsheets to the performative chatter of her circle. Ross cleared his throat. I remember him. Tall guy with the weird laugh. That's not very nice, Ross, Mara snapped. Rowan has been nothing but kind to this family. I studied my wife's face, searching for the woman I'd fallen in love with 2 decades ago. She was still beautiful at 41, still commanded attention when she walked into a room. But something had shifted over the past year. The warmth in her green eyes had cooled to calculation. Her smiles felt practiced, like she was running focus groups in her head before speaking. Fine, I said finally. How long is a few nights? A week, maybe 2, just until he finds his own place. 2 weeks. I'd be sleeping on our living room couch for 2 weeks, so some guy I barely knew could enjoy the memory foam mattress I'd saved 3 months to buy. Great, I'll pack a bag. Mara's relief was visible. Thank you, honey. I knew you'd understand. But I didn't understand. Not at all. And as I climbed the stairs to gather my things, a cold certainty settled in my chest. This wasn't about allergies or rough patches or old friendships. This was about something else entirely. An hour later, I stood in our bedroom doorway with a duffel bag, watching Mara change the sheets. She'd already moved my reading glasses and charging cables from the nightstand. You're really going all out for Rowan, I observed. I want him to be comfortable. She smoothed the comforter with unnecessary care. He's been such a good friend over the years. Has he? Because I don't remember him being around much. Mara paused, her back to me. You don't remember a lot of things, Grant. You're always buried in those reports. Another dig. Another little slice designed to make me question my own perceptions. I'd been getting a lot of those lately. When does he arrive? This afternoon. I'm picking him up from the airport. Of course she was. Should I stick around to say hello? That's not necessary. I know you have that client meeting. I didn't have a client meeting, but I didn't correct her. Instead, I walked to the dresser and grabbed my backup phone charger, the one I kept for business trips. Grant? Mara's voice had taken on that honey-sweet tone she used when she wanted something. I really do appreciate this. It means a lot to me. I turned to look at her. She stood framed by the window, afternoon light catching the auburn highlights in her hair. Beautiful, manipulative, and lying about something. Sure thing, sweetheart. Anything for an old friend? I left the house 20 minutes later, but I didn't head to the office. Instead, I drove to the Marriott downtown and booked a room for a week. The desk clerk, a young woman with kind eyes, processed my credit card without question. Business trip? She asked, making conversation. Something like that. As I rode the elevator to the 7th floor, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Ross's number. Mom's friend has allergies, I texted. Taking a break. Call if you need anything. His response came immediately. Are you okay, Dad? I stared at the question for a long time before typing back. Working on it. The hotel room was generic but clean. King bed, desk, chair, mini fridge. Everything a displaced husband might need. I set my bag on the bed and walked to the window. The city stretched out below me, thousands of people going about their lives, none of them sleeping on couches to accommodate their wives' mysterious old friends. My phone buzzed, a text from Mara. Rowan's flight was delayed. Won't be home until late. Thanks again for being flexible. I almost laughed. Flexible. That's what 18 years of marriage had made me. Flexible enough to bend over backwards, flexible enough to doubt my own instincts, flexible enough to sleep on my own couch. But not tonight. Tonight, I was going to do something I hadn't done in years. I was going to pay attention. Real attention. The kind that might finally answer the questions that had been nagging at me for months. I opened my laptop and started making notes. Times, dates, inconsistencies. Mara's late nights at the office, her new gym membership, the way she'd started guarding her phone like state secrets. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was reading too much into innocent situations. Or maybe, after 18 years of being the accommodating husband, I was finally ready to stop being quite so flexible. The next morning brought a revelation that changed everything. I was having breakfast in the hotel restaurant, scrolling through emails, when my phone rang. Rick Hartley, my college roommate and one of the few people who'd stayed honest with me through the years. "Grant, you sound like garbage. What's going on?" I told him about the couch situation, about Rowan, about the growing sense that something wasn't right. Rick listened without interruption, which was unusual for him. "You want my advice?" he said finally. "Always. Get a professional, someone who knows how to look at situations objectively. A therapist, a private investigator." The suggestion hit me like cold water. "Rick, I can't." "Why not? You're a financial analyst, Grant. You investigate discrepancies for a living. This is just a different kind of audit." He had a point. In my professional life, I never accepted explanations that didn't add up. I dug deeper, found patterns, uncovered the truth hiding in the numbers. Why should my personal life be any different? "I know a guy," Rick continued. "Marvin Kowalski, former cop, very discreet. He helped me during my divorce. 2 hours later, I sat across from Marvin in a coffee shop downtown. He was exactly what you'd expect from a private investigator. Weathered face, sharp eyes, the kind of guy who noticed everything and forgot nothing. "Tell me about your wife's friend," he said, pulling out a small notebook. I gave him what little I knew about Rowan Carrick. Marvin wrote it all down, asking pointed questions that made me realize how little I actually knew about the man sleeping in my bed. "What's your gut telling you?" Marvin asked. "That this isn't about allergies. Trust that. In 30 years of doing this work, I've learned that spouses usually know when something's wrong. They just don't want to admit it." Marvin's retainer was reasonable, his methods straightforward. Within 24 hours, he'd have basic background information. Within a week, he'd know Rowan's real story. "One more thing," he said as we shook hands. "Don't change your routine. Act normal. People reveal more when they think nobody's watching." That afternoon, I drove past my own house. Rowan's car sat in my driveway, a late model BMW with out-of-state plates. Through the living room window, I could see 2 figures on the couch. My couch, the one I was supposedly sleeping on. They weren't watching television. I kept driving, my hands steady on the wheel, my mind cataloging details. The BMW's license plate number, the fact that the curtains were drawn in the middle of the day, the way Mara had positioned herself against Rowan, intimate and familiar. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "How's your day going? Rowan says thanks again for being so accommodating." I pulled over and typed back, "No problem. Happy to help an old friend." The hypocrisy of it burned, but Marvin was right. Normal behavior. Let them think they were getting away with whatever this was. That evening, I returned to the house around dinner time. Mara was in the kitchen, cooking something that smelled expensive. Rowan sat at our breakfast bar, drinking my scotch from my favorite glass. "Grant," Mara's voice carried forced cheer. "Perfect timing. I made enough for everyone." Rowan stood and extended his hand. "Great to see you again, man. Thanks for letting me crash here." Up close, he was exactly as Ross had described. Tall, probably 6'2", with the kind of easy confidence that came from never being told no. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. Everything about him screamed entitlement. "No trouble at all," I said, accepting the handshake. "How long has it been? 5 years?" Something like that. His eyes didn't quite meet mine. Time flies. We made small talk over dinner. Rowan worked in logistics, he said, coordinating shipments, managing schedules, making sure things got where they needed to go when they needed to be there. He was between jobs, looking for the right opportunity. "What kind of logistics?" I asked. "Corporate stuff, mostly. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was, actually. The answer was vague enough to mean nothing, specific enough to sound legitimate. Classic misdirection. Mara filled the silences with chatter about work, about the kids, about everything except why her old friend really needed our bedroom. She was performing, I realized, playing the role of the gracious hostess while her husband and her, what, lover, boyfriend, made polite conversation. After dinner, I excused myself. Early morning tomorrow, I'll leave you two to catch up. Where are you staying? Rowan asked, the question casual but pointed. The Marriott downtown, close to the office. Mara shot him a look I wasn't supposed to catch. Quick, sharp warning. That's expensive, she said. Are you sure you wouldn't be more comfortable here? The couch really is. I'm fine at the hotel, fewer distractions. I gathered my things and headed for the door, playing the part of the accommodating husband one more time. But as I reached for my keys, I made sure to glance back. Rowan was already moving toward Mara, his hand finding the small of her back with practiced familiarity. She leaned into him, a gesture so natural it spoke of months, maybe years, of repetition. They thought I was gone. They thought they were safe. They were wrong on both counts. Marvin called 3 days later with information that turned my world upside down. Your instincts were right, he said without preamble. Rowan Carrick isn't just your wife's old friend. He's her old everything. We met at the same coffee shop. This time, Marvin brought a folder thick with documents and photographs. They dated for 2 years before you met Mara, he began, spreading papers across the table. Broke up, got back together, broke up again. Classic on and off relationship. That was 20 years ago, Marvin. Was it? He slid a photograph across the table. This was taken 6 months ago. The image showed Mara and Rowan at a restaurant I didn't recognize. She was laughing at something he'd said, her hand covering his across the table. They looked like a couple. They looked happy. There's more. Another photograph, Mara and Rowan entering a hotel. This was taken 3 months ago, and this. A third image, showing them leaving what appeared to be a residential building. 2 weeks ago. I stared at the evidence, my analytical mind cataloging details while my emotional side reeled. How long? Based on credit card records and surveillance, at least 8 months of regular contact. But Grant, there's something else. Something bigger. He pulled out a property deed. The address where I took that last photo? It's not a hotel or a restaurant. It's a house. A very nice house on Lake Morrison. I knew Lake Morrison. Exclusive neighborhood, $1 million properties, the kind of place Mara had always said we'd live someday. The property is owned jointly by Mara Solon and Rowan Carrick, purchased 2 years ago. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible. We don't have that kind of money. Actually, you do. Or rather, you did. Marvin's expression was grim. Your wife has been very creative with your finances. Over the next hour, he laid out a pattern of deception that was breathtaking in its scope. Separate bank accounts I didn't know about, credit cards in her name only, investment withdrawals that had somehow escaped my notice. She's been planning this for years, Marvin said. The house, the relationship with Rowan, all of it. Planning what? I think you know. I did know. Deep down, I'd known for months. The distance, the lies, the way she looked at me like I was an obstacle instead of her husband. She was planning to leave me, had probably already left me in every way that mattered. There's one more thing. Marvin's voice was gentler now. The house on Lake Morrison isn't empty. He showed me school enrollment records. 2 children, ages 7 and 5, listed at that address. Emergency contact. Mara Solon. My vision blurred. Those aren't... We don't have... I know, but according to these records, your wife does. The implications crashed over me in waves. Mara had another family, another life, children I'd never met, living in a house I'd unknowingly helped pay for. Are they... I couldn't finish the question. I don't know yet, but I can find out. I sat in my hotel room that night, staring at the documents Marvin had given me. Property deeds, bank statements, school records, the paper trail of a life I'd never suspected existed. My phone buzzed. A text from Mara. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Working late. Right. I called Ross. Dad, is everything okay? You sound weird. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Has your mother ever mentioned other children? Maybe friends' kids she's particularly close to? Silence stretched between us. Then, Dad, what's going on? Really? Just answer the question, please. Sometimes she gets phone calls, and she'll say things like, I need to check on the little ones, or the kids need me. But when I ask her about it, she says she's talking about work, some campaign for a children's charity. The little ones, the kids, not Ross and Amelia, other children. Ross, I need you to do something for me. Can you pay attention to your mother's conversations? Her phone calls, her texts, anything that seems unusual? Are you guys getting divorced? The question hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to lie, to protect him from the truth I was still processing myself. But he was 17, old enough to handle honesty. I don't know yet, but something's happening, and I need to understand what it is. Okay, Dad, I'll pay attention. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and began researching property records, school districts, anything I could find about the house on Lake Morrison. What I discovered made my chest tight with anger. The house was beautiful. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, a dock on the lake. The kind of place Mara had always claimed we couldn't afford. The kind of place she'd been living in for 2 years while I slept in our modest suburban bedroom, believing we were saving for our future. I found more photographs online, real estate listings from when the house was for sale, recent images from the Neighborhood Association website. And in one of those images, barely visible in the background, was Mara. She was pushing a swing in the backyard, a small child laughing as she soared through the air. The child had Mara's eyes, Mara's smile, Mara's everything. I closed the laptop and walked to the hotel window. The city lights blurred as tears I hadn't expected began to fall. Not tears of sadness, exactly. Tears of rage, of betrayal so complete it felt like drowning. For 18 years, I'd believed in our marriage. I'd worked 60-hour weeks to provide for our family. I'd sacrificed vacations, hobbies, friendships, all in service of building something lasting with the woman I loved. And while I was building our life, she was building another one, with someone else, with someone else's children. My phone rang. Mara. Hi, honey. Just wanted to let you know I'll be even later than I thought. This client is being particularly demanding. No problem, I managed. Take your time. You're the best. I don't know what I'd do without you. The irony was perfect. She was about to find out exactly what she'd do without me, and I was about to find out what I'd do without her. The DNA results arrived on a Tuesday morning that felt like the end of the world and the beginning of something else entirely. Ross was my biological son. 99.7% certainty. The relief was overwhelming, followed immediately by a rage so pure it made my hands shake. If Ross was mine, and Mara had hidden other children from me, then everything I'd believed about my marriage was a lie. Everything. I called Marvin from my hotel room. I need to know about those other children. Everything. Already working on it. But Grant, there's something else. Something about Rowan you need to know. We met at his office this time, a cramped space above a bail bondsman that smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams. Marvin had more photographs, more documents, more evidence of the parallel life my wife had been living. Rowan Carrick served 18 months for identity fraud, he said, sliding a court document across his desk. Released 3 years ago. He's on parole. Parole for what exactly? Falsifying documents, forging signatures, using other people's personal information for financial gain. Marvin's smile was grim. Sound familiar? It did. The property deed with Mara's name, the bank accounts I didn't know about, the investment withdrawals that had somehow escaped my attention. You think he's been helping her? I think he's been coordinating her. This isn't just an affair, Grant. This is a long-term financial operation. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Rowan worked in logistics, coordination, making sure things got where they needed to go when they needed to be there, including my money. There's more, Marvin continued. The parole conditions are very specific. No co-signing financial documents, no access to others' personal information, no involvement in any activity that could be construed as identity fraud. The property deed violates those conditions. Among other things, yes. I leaned back in the uncomfortable chair, my mind racing. What happens if his parole officer finds out? Immediate revocation, back to prison to serve out his original sentence, plus additional time for the violations. How long? Minimum 2 years, probably more. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. A real smile, the kind that came from seeing a clear path forward. I need copies of everything, I said. Every document, every photograph, every piece of evidence you've gathered. What are you planning? I'm planning to stop being accommodating. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went home. Not to collect clothes or check mail, but to reclaim my space, my house, my life. Mara's car was gone, but Rowan's BMW sat in my driveway like a monument to entitlement. I parked behind it, blocking it in, and walked to my front door. The house felt different, smaller somehow, like it had been rearranged to accommodate someone else's presence. Rowan's jacket hung on my coat hook. His shoes sat by the door where mine used to be. I found him in my living room, feet up on my coffee table, watching my television. "Grant!" He jumped up, guilty surprise flashing across his face. "I wasn't expecting you." "It's my house, Rowan. I don't need to make appointments." "Right, of course. I just meant, Mara said you were staying downtown." "I was. Now I'm not." We stood there for a moment, sizing each other up. He was taller than me, probably stronger, but I had something he didn't, the moral high ground and 18 years of suppressed anger. "Where is she?" I asked. "Work, I think. She left a couple hours ago." "And you're just, what? Making yourself at home?" His confidence faltered slightly. "She said it was okay, that you were cool with me staying here." "Did she?" "That's interesting, because I don't remember agreeing to anything permanent." "It's just temporary, man, until I get back on my feet." "Right. The job search. How's that going?" "Good, actually. I've got a few prospects." More lies. According to Marvin, Rowan hadn't applied for a single legitimate job. His income came from sources that would violate his parole if his officer knew about them. "That's great," I said. "I'm sure you'll find something soon. In the meantime, I think it's time for you to find other accommodations." "What?" "You heard me. Pack your things. You're leaving." Rowan's mask slipped completely. The easy smile disappeared, replaced by something harder, more calculating. "I don't think that's your decision to make," he said quietly. "Really? Whose decision is it?" "Mara's. This is her house, too." "Actually, it's not." I pulled out my phone and showed him the property deed I'd photographed. "This house is in my name only. Has been since we bought it. Which means I decide who stays and who goes." His face went pale. "You can't just kick me out. I have rights." "What rights are those, exactly? The rights of a house guest who's overstayed his welcome? Or maybe you're thinking of tenant rights? Because if you want to claim you're a tenant, we can make this official. Lease agreement, background check, references, the works." I watched him process the implications. A background check would reveal his criminal history. References would lead back to his parole officer. Official documentation would create a paper trail he couldn't afford. "You're making a mistake," he said finally. "Am I? Because from where I'm standing, the only mistake I made was being too accommodating." My phone buzzed, a text from Mara. "Home in an hour. Can you pick up dinner?" I showed the message to Rowan. "Looks like you have an hour to pack." "She's not going to let you do this." "Then she can find somewhere else to stay too." The threat hung in the air between us. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to physically intimidate me. His hands clenched into fists, his jaw tightened, and I saw the real Rowan underneath the charming facade. But then he seemed to remember something. Maybe his parole conditions, maybe the fact that assault charges would send him straight back to prison. Maybe just the realization that his comfortable arrangement was about to collapse. "Fine," he said. "But this isn't over." "Yes, it is." I watched him gather his things, making sure he didn't take anything that belonged to me or my family. When he was done, I walked him to the door. "One more thing, Rowan." He turned back, his expression hostile. "If I see you near my house, my family, or my property again, I'll call the police, and your parole officer, and anyone else who might be interested in your current living situation." He left without another word, his BMW disappearing down the street like a bad dream finally ending. I stood in my doorway, breathing deeply for the first time in weeks. The house felt like mine again, bigger, cleaner, free of the toxic presence that had been poisoning it. My phone rang. Mara. "Hi, honey. I'm leaving work now. Should I pick up Chinese or pizza?" "Actually," I said, settling into my favorite chair, "why don't you come straight home? We need to talk." Mara arrived 30 minutes later, her key turning in the lock like it had thousands of times before. But everything was different now, and we both knew it. She found me in the living room, sitting in my chair with Marvin's folder spread across the coffee table. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, fear, and finally, cold calculation. "Where's Rowan?" she asked. "Gone." "What do you mean, gone?" I gestured to the documents. "Sit down, Mara. We have a lot to discuss." She remained standing, her purse clutched like a shield. "Grant, whatever you think you know. I know about the house on Lake Morrison." The color drained from her face. "I know about the children. I know about the bank accounts, the forged signatures, the money you've been siphoning from our investments." I picked up one of the photographs Marvin had taken. "I know about all of it." She sank onto the couch, her composure finally cracking. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because I think my wife has been living a double life for years. I think she's been stealing from me to support another family. I think she's been planning to leave me while pretending everything was fine. I leaned forward. Tell me which part I got wrong. Silence stretched between us. Outside, I could hear the neighbor's dog barking, the sound of normal life continuing while mine imploded. The children? I said quietly. Are they mine? No. The word hit like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting it. Rowan's? It doesn't matter whose they are. It matters to me, it matters to Ross and Amelia. It matters to the federal investigators who are going to want to know how you've been filing fraudulent tax returns claiming dependents you hid from your husband. Her head snapped up. What investigators? I pulled out another document. Did you really think you could claim head of household status and dependents without me noticing forever? The IRS flagged your returns, Mara. They're opening an audit. This was partially true. My accountant had found the irregularities and would be reporting them. The investigation was inevitable now. You can't do this to me, she whispered. I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourself. She tried tears then, the waterworks that had worked so many times over the years when she wanted something or needed to deflect blame. But I was done being manipulated. Grant, please. I know this looks bad, but I can explain everything. Go ahead. The house, it was supposed to be a surprise. For us, for our family. With Rowan's name on the deed? That was just, he helped with the financing. It's complicated. Try me. I'm good with complicated financial arrangements. She fumbled for words, her story falling apart in real time. The children? They're not mine, not really. I've been helping their mother. She's going through a difficult time and... Stop, I held up my hand. Just stop lying. I have photographs, Mara, bank records, school enrollment forms with your name on them. I have evidence of everything. The mask finally fell away completely. The tears dried up, replaced by the cold anger I'd been seeing glimpses of for months. Fine, she said. You want the truth? Here's the truth. I've been miserable for years. Years, Grant, living in this mediocre house, pretending to be satisfied with your mediocre job and your mediocre ambitions. Mediocre? When was the last time you surprised me? When was the last time you made me feel special, desired, alive? When was the last time you gave me the chance? I found someone who appreciates me, someone who sees my potential and wants to build something real with me. By stealing from your husband? By taking what I deserved. Do you know how much I've contributed to this marriage? How much I've sacrificed? I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Sacrificed? You've been living in $1 million house while I slept in a hotel room because you needed the bedroom for your boyfriend. Rowan is more than that. He's my partner, my equal. He's a convicted felon who's violating his parole by co-owning property with you. That stopped her cold. What? Identity fraud, Mara. 18 months in prison. He's not supposed to be involved in any financial transactions, especially ones involving forged documents. You're lying. I showed her Rowan's criminal record, his parole conditions, the evidence of violations. She read through it all, her face growing paler with each page. This changes nothing, she said finally. I want a divorce. Good, so do I. I want half of everything. You're not going to get it. We'll see what my lawyer says about that. I smiled. Actually, we won't. See, the thing about stealing from your spouse is that it tends to complicate divorce proceedings, especially when there's evidence of fraud, forgery, and tax evasion. You can't prove any of that. I gestured to the folder. I can prove all of it. She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. What do you want, Grant? What's it going to take to make this go away? This isn't going away, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to move out of this house. Tonight, you're going to close the secret bank accounts and return every penny you stole. You're going to cooperate fully with the tax investigation. And if I don't? Then I turn everything over to the authorities, the IRS, the local police, Rowan's parole officer, everyone. She turned to face me, her expression venomous. You vindictive bastard. I prefer thorough. It's what makes me good at my job. The kids will hate you for this. The kids will understand when they're old enough. Ross already suspects something's wrong. As if summoned by his name, Ross appeared in the doorway. He looked between us, taking in the documents, the tension, the obvious signs of a marriage in its final moments. Dad? Mom? What's going on? Mara rushed to him. Honey, your father and I are having some problems, but it's nothing for you to worry about. Ross looked at me over her head. I nodded slightly. Are you getting divorced? he asked quietly. Yes, I said before Mara could deflect. We are. Because of Rowan? Mara's face went white. What do you know about Rowan? I know he's not just your friend. I know you've been lying to Dad. I know you think we're all too stupid to notice. The truth, spoken by our 17-year-old son, hung in the room like a verdict. Ross, you don't understand, Mara began. I understand enough. He walked over to me. Dad, are you okay? I will be. Good. He looked back at his mother. I'll be staying here with Dad. You can't make that decision. I'm your mother. I'm 17. The court will listen to what I want. He paused. And I want to stay with the parent who didn't lie to me. Mara's composure finally shattered completely. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. This isn't over, she said. Yes, it is, I replied. It's been over for a long time. We're just making it official now. After she left, Ross and I sat in the quiet house, processing what had just happened. Are you really okay? He asked. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I feel like an idiot for not seeing this sooner. I looked at him. But yeah, I think I'm going to be okay. What about Amelia? We'll figure it out. Together. He nodded. Dad, I'm proud of you for standing up to her, for not letting her keep lying. Thanks, son. That means more than you know. As we sat there, I realized something had shifted. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like myself again. Not the accommodating husband, not the flexible partner, not the man who slept on couches to make room for his wife's lies. Just me, Grant Solon. Father, professional, man who'd been pushed too far and finally pushed back. It felt good. It felt like the beginning of something better. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I'd expected, largely because Mara's legal position was untenable. Her lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Vance, took one look at the evidence and advised immediate settlement. Your wife has been engaging in systematic financial fraud, she told us during our first mediation session. Fighting this will only make things worse for her. Mara sat beside her attorney, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. The confident woman who'd demanded I sleep on my own couch had been replaced by someone desperate and cornered. I want to see my children, she said. Ross has made his choice clear, my attorney replied. Amelia is still deciding. Amelia had been staying with Mara at a downtown apartment, but she'd been calling me every night. Long conversations about trust, about lies, about what it meant when the people you loved weren't who you thought they were. I understand why Ross chose you, she'd said the night before. But she's still my mom, Dad. I can't just abandon her. I'm not asking you to abandon anyone. I'm asking you to be honest about what you need. I need both of you to stop hating each other. I don't hate your mother, sweetheart. I hate what she did. There's a difference. Now, sitting across from Mara in the sterile conference room, I tried to find some remnant of the woman I'd fallen in love with. She was still there, underneath the desperation and anger, but she felt like a stranger. The house on Lake Morrison, my attorney said, consulting his notes. We need to discuss the disposition of that property. It's not marital property, Patricia said quickly. It was purchased separately. With marital funds, funds obtained through fraudulent means. Mara spoke for the first time in an hour. I'll sign it over. The house, everything. Just let me see my kids. That's not up to me, I said. It's up to them. Ross won't even take my calls. Can you blame him? She looked at me with something that might have been the old Mara, the one who'd laughed at my jokes and dreamed about our future together. I never meant for it to happen like this, she said quietly. How did you mean for it to happen? I thought you'd be relieved, that you'd want out too. Why would you think that? Because we've been strangers for years, Grant. Living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, but strangers. She wasn't wrong. Somewhere along the way, we'd stopped seeing each other, stopped trying. I'd buried myself in work, she'd found comfort elsewhere, and we'd both pretended it was normal. That doesn't excuse what you did, I said. No, it doesn't. The settlement was finalized 3 weeks later. Mara kept her car, her personal belongings, and a small amount of cash. Everything else, the house, the investments, the children, stayed with me. The Lake Morrison property would be sold, with proceeds going toward paying back the money she'd stolen. Rowan had already been arrested for parole violations. His deportation hearing was scheduled for the following month. The last I heard, he was trying to claim the property deed was forged, that he'd never agreed to any financial arrangements with Mara. Even criminals, apparently, had limits to their loyalty. On a cold Thursday evening in November, I stood in my kitchen making dinner for Ross and myself. Amelia was coming over later. She'd decided to split her time between both parents, a compromise that seemed to be working for everyone. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted that I hadn't even realized was there. I'd changed things, new furniture, fresh paint, family photos that actually included the whole family. My phone buzzed with a text from Marvin. "Thought you'd want to know. Rowan's deportation was approved. He leaves next week." I typed back, "Thanks for everything." "Anytime. You did good, Grant." Had I? Sometimes I wondered if I'd been too harsh, too unforgiving. But then I'd remember the lies, the stolen money, the children I'd never known existed, and the doubt would fade. I'd protected my family. I'd protected myself. I'd stopped being accommodating and started being strong. Ross came downstairs, homework finished, ready for dinner. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever regret it, fighting back instead of just letting it happen?" I thought about it while I plated our food. "No," I said finally. "I regret not fighting back sooner." "Are you happier now?" "I'm more myself now. Whether that's happier, ask me in a year." We ate in comfortable silence, two men learning how to be a family in a new configuration. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall, covering the world in clean white. Later that evening, after Amelia had come and gone, after homework was finished and the house was quiet, I found myself thinking about keys, the keys I'd grabbed that night when Mara demanded I sleep on the couch, the keys to my car, my office, my life. I'd thought I was running away. Turned out I was running towards something better. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, and it was late for visitors. I opened the door to find Mara standing on my porch, snow dusting her hair and shoulders. "I know I shouldn't be here," she said. "Then why are you?" "Because I wanted to say something I should have said months ago." I waited. "I'm sorry, Grant. Not for leaving. We both know that needed to happen. But for how I did it. For the lies, the stealing, the way I made you doubt yourself." "Okay." "That's it? Just okay?" "What do you want me to say, Mara?" "I don't know. Something. Anything." I looked at her standing in the snow. This woman who'd shared 18 years of my life, who'd given me 2 beautiful children, who'd nearly destroyed me with her selfishness. "I forgive you," I said finally. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to let it go." She nodded, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Take care of yourself, Grant. You too." I watched her walk back to her car, her footprints dark in the fresh snow. Then I closed the door, turned the lock, and went back to my life. The life I'd reclaimed when I grabbed my keys instead of accepting the couch. The life that was finally